Hey guys, welcome to Blockchain Banter Trading Crypto. I'm Jen. I'm here with Keith Allen, TA and algo trader, order book analyst, and co-founder of Material Indicators, along with Dr. Mark Richardson, project lead at Bancor. Always great to see you guys. Happy Tuesday. And thank you to everybody who is joining. Always wonderful to have you also. Kind of just want to ask you guys point blank. I mean, there was a lot of news last week, right? And I think over the weekend as well. We saw the market reacting. What was it specifically that really got your attention that you think the market was reacting to most heavily? Like, what
Well,
do you think the
it's
impact
it's
was?
mind-boggling that you say happy Tuesday, by the way, as well. It feels like
It
it's
is,
been a
right?
hell of a week, and it's only Tuesday.
I'm like, it is Tuesday, right?
Right. Exactly. Yes, this call is my reminder of what day it is. It's my level set. Um, uh, uh, you know, Friday afternoon, I don't know if it was after TradFi market closed, or if not, it was very close to that time. Um, we got the announcement that tariffs were going to be imposed on Canada, 25% on Canada, 25% on Mexico, and 10% on China. And the market reacted to that, obviously. And I had posted Friday, afternoon or evening, hey, market is not going to like this news. Killer whales are going to be out on the weekend, creating volatility. If you're a trader, there's going to be opportunities. If you're an investor, maybe, I'm going to go fishing, and keep in mind the trend is
Yeah.
still intact, which is exactly what I did. And then I came back from a day of fishing and saw price continue to erode, and then the rhetoric start to come back from Mexico and Canada that they were going to have retaliatory tariffs, and this was just obviously something I've said in the past, and this is where I'm kicking myself, because I broke my own rule. But I want to explain to people that it doesn't matter how long you've been trading, you're always learning, and yes, we make mistakes from time to time. We try
Yeah.
to mitigate those mistakes, and we try to learn from those mistakes. And I've learned from this one a couple of times already, so I should have it down good at least now for the next 6 months. But I was watching things erode, and I say, don't, once you set your trades and your take profits and your stop loss, don't touch them. Resist the urge to touch them unless something fundamental changes. And I felt that this was had the potential to be a fundamental shift in the market, because if we were entering a trade war, I wasn't confident that our prior support levels were going to hold. Obviously, 100 didn't hold. 91 did, which is interesting. It went right exactly to the line, and I guess I could share that chart with you guys. But I happen to be in a situation personally where I have a big event coming that I need some cash for, and so I did not want to sit here and watch my portfolio dwindle if we were going to get that 30% correction. And so I de-risked a little bit of my higher entries. Pretty much everything above 98 I sold. And
At 91. Okay. So still at profit, right?
right. Well, no, it wasn't profit. It was at that point.
Oh, you were
It
98. Okay.
was
I'm thinking opposite. Yeah. Okay. Never mind.
right. So
Sorry
I
about that.
sold it as it was dropping, and I sold it in like the mid 94s. And things went all the way down to 91. Now, I believe it or not, I do have a life and a family, so I wasn't watching the charts on Sunday night that closely. I just, I cut my losses and, went to enjoy the rest of my evening with my family. And before I went to bed, I saw that it had literally bottomed out right on the line of my prior support level. And I was like, oh shit, I should have bought right there, but I wasn't of mind to do it. So I did buy back in, and I bought back in lower than I sold, which is a positive. But I
Yeah.
could have done I could have done a lot better, probably on alts too, because alts just took an absolute shellacking in that process. I'm sharing the chart, by the way, Jen, if you want to pull it up, just to show exactly where price went
Really
during that.
fast, Keith, hold your thought for a minute too. Mark, were you kind of looking at the tariffs and stuff too? Or was there other news that you had noticed that might have led to this while we kind of look at the chart? Was that your?
I mean, you know how I feel about these things. I think we can point to any number of like potential catalysts for this sort of thing, but I think it's a bit ad hoc. If
we
I think if I
knew
had
the
to
tariffs
choose,
were coming,
right,
right?
that exactly, and that's
Yeah.
kind of towards my point. Like I don't think that it necessarily sparked a market-wide panic. There could be any number of things that precipitated it. I'm comfortable with the tariffs explanation as being a good one.
Was
I'm
there
not
any
sure that it's
discussion, Mark?
necessarily
I
positive.
know you've been into conference. Has there been any discussion over the weekend about what was happening?
No, not really. Honestly, it's mostly felt like business as usual. People were paying attention to some other things. No one seemed particularly concerned about what was happening on the Bitcoin chart. I would say confidence in Bitcoin's price was pretty high at this conference, but that's to be expected. People were mostly, I think, paying attention to things like the alts, as you pointed out, which were taking a much bigger dive than anything else. Especially things like Ethereum, like a loss of confidence in Ethereum has, I think, at least partly been precipitated by the fact that people have noticed that its deflationary policy, which came with the Shanghai upgrade, has mostly been reversed by the Cancun upgrade, which introduced blobs and things that made it much more efficient or much cheaper for L2s to use the the data layer on Ethereum. And since then, basically the fees collected and burned on Ethereum layer 1 have just been painting a straight line downwards. And so since Shanghai, since the fork, Ethereum has been a deflationary blockchain, but pretty much all of that deflation is gone, and we're basically back to break even now, thanks to the the loss of taxation on layer 2s combined with the loss of user traction and adoption, overall blockchain usage on Ethereum layer 1, which has mostly been sort of outsourced to the layer 2s, which are borrowing from Ethereum's security. So I would say a lot more of the discussion that I've been listening to has been on Ethereum fundamentals, not necessarily Bitcoin price action.
It's interesting.
Look at that wick on ETH on Monday.
Oh yeah, it was phenomenal and fast.
Yeah,
it came all the way back down to its regression band.
almost to the 0.5
2100.
Yeah, it went to yep, 2100.
Wow,
that was $1,000 candle.
that couldn't have lasted long, right?
Probably not.
I mean, I wasn't watching it for that. What are you on right now?
No, that was I mean, that was, let's see, there was a 12% candle and this one closed it even pretty much, but there was a lot of range in that candle. Let's see. Nonetheless, right, the recovery. So that was, that second one was another 18%, another 18% down. So we did have a lot of discussion in our Telegram communities about the tariff situation, and well, whether you subscribe to whether or not that was the catalyst, the fact that we started to see recovery when there was talk of negotiation calls with Canada and Mexico yesterday, and then as each of those respective presidents came out and made their statement that they struck a deal with Trump,
we did see it recovering.
We saw price recover, and so kicking myself a little bit that I hit the panic button when I did. I really shouldn't have. Cost myself a little bit of money, but all in all, I did it in the sake of mitigating risk on capital that I needed. And so I would say this, yeah, it was a bad decision, but when we often say, don't risk more than you can afford to lose. I couldn't afford to lose that money at that point, so I de-risked it. So I stand by my risk management principles. In that regard, I made the right decision.
Yeah.
Wow, you see how I just justified that? That was fantastic.
You feel good though? Does it feel good?
Does it feel good? Well, it feels good knowing that it feels good knowing that I have that cash set aside, and I'm ready to make that purchase this week as soon as contracts are in place. So
nice.
There's that.
That's awesome. Okay, so this is overall a good thing for you personally, but it was still one of those lessons, right?
Yes.
That you can.
Yeah, I mean, had I not pulled the trigger, I would have had more money than I have.
Right.
Than I have
But
right
if it
now.
was the tariffs also, Keith, if it was the tariffs and things didn't turn around, if that was the catalyst, if we didn't start to see this 30-day delay on the tariffs and things of that sort, and these announcements start coming out, we really don't know what could have happened.
Right. We were also at that point potentially looking at a serious economic impact to everyday goods, from groceries to gas. So
yeah.
An interesting thing on that note is that I saw a poll, a survey of like regular Americans about the dependence of America's economy on foreign oil, and how it makes them feel about the tariffs and things that are going out to Canada and Mexico, and it was very, very apparent that most people, or most American civilians, are dramatically underestimating how much oil comes in from Canada and Mexico. In the polling, it really did look like they thought that Saudi Arabia was the predominant exporter of oil into the United States, whereas in fact it's like 66% Canadian and like 14%. Or sorry, maybe 6.6% or something Mexican, but like the two biggest importers, like the two biggest exporters of foreign oil into the United States are Mexico and Canada.
U.S. is not dependent on Middle Eastern oil, and
yeah, not at all.
And quite frankly, I think part of the plan is to reduce our dependence on Canada as well. I think Canada services some of the northern and midwestern states, but it's my understanding that the U.S. has enough supply to be self-sustaining. So we'll see if they tap into that supply. That's one of the things that he campaigned on as well. So that remains to be seen. Nonetheless, the trade war, set the fuel aside, talking about what it would mean on car parts, on lumber. We get a lot of lumber from Canada, right? That's building materials. So, my wife is in the architectural hardware business, right? So her biggest customers are door manufacturers. Those materials come from, a lot of that lumber comes from Canada, and their manufacturing of their hardware comes from China. So this is this could potentially be a big pinch on just her specific industry, but really across the board on everything we use, especially when it comes to things like home building.
It's interesting that you say everything we use when we're talking about like China, Canada, and Mexico.
Well, car parts, produce. We get a lot of produce from Mexico. I mean, I live in Florida. We grow a lot of produce in Florida, but we get a lot from Mexico.
I used to live in Mexico. We got all the terrible produce because all of it was shipped out.
Right. I need my
produce was the worst in Mexico.
I need my avocados from Mexico every day.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's you were going to pull up the Bitcoin chart earlier.
Sure.
And those tariffs, by the way, if you guys saw the announcements, those are on hold for 30 days. So we could possibly be revisiting this,
Right. I think
sort of same conversation in 30 days, depending on how the next month goes.
It's
right?
clear that these are now negotiating strategies for Trump. He won't hesitate to use them. I don't think he's bluffing. He won't hesitate to use them. But in essence, he got, I think, 15,000 Mexican troops to the border to the south and 10,000 Canadian troops to the border to the north to basically form a fentanyl task force. So ultimately, that's a good thing. I would think that it's in both of those countries' best interest to support those efforts. And so,
we see that happening. So
Right.
yeah, we'll see. I mean, 30 days more, right?
Right. And then, there'll be another flex. And don't let it be lost on you that the Trump family bought the fucking dip. Okay. So
I'm sure anybody who was in a position to buy the dip bought the dip.
Right. Well, do you think that you think there might have been some advance notice? Right. That's not insider trading, but I guess we can't have that discussion because his name's not Nancy Pelosi. So yes, on the chart, what was interesting to me is that we literally wicked exactly to the line. I mean, beautiful to the line that we have touched now. I think it's like a dozen times that we've tested support here at this level. We obviously lost the RS flip, the resistance support flip at 100K, which initially was psychological, but now becomes structural because we've had, remember the number of times that we fought with that 69K level.
Yes.
Well, 100 is the new 69K. And now that we've had a lot of interaction with that level, it is forming some technical, structure for itself. Our last flip, our last resistance flip, support flip is here at this 91, 91 and change. But before that, it's really that 2021 top that we flipped here, right? We consolidated here for a really long time and little bit of consolidation in this zone, but now all the consolidation is above that 91.5 level. And the next flip that we're looking for, at least that I'm looking for, is above this 100K level. And I was hoping that we were going to see some extended consolidation above this 100K between the 100 and the 109 all-time high. And let's do this for a period of time before that breakout. And I guess that's going to happen. But first we have to actually flip that 100K level. And we're above and below that line the past 3 days. So we're not there yet. Mark was talking about alts, and as I was trying to monitor the situation over the weekend and get a feel for where the money was flowing, right? Was money just flowing into USDT as a safe haven? Was it flowing into Bitcoin? Was it flowing into alts? Because when you see Bitcoin pull back, your first question is, okay, are we going to get that? Are we going to get that alt season? Is everything tanking, or are we going to get that alt season? And everything was tanking. But I put together a chart that I think is pretty cool. I'd love to get some feedback from some of our followers if they're interested in this one. So let me simplify what's here first, and I'll add these layers in so you know what's what. This is Bitcoin dominance, right? And we've been, we've RS flipped this trend line here for the moment, but I'm wondering if we're going to slip back down. Obviously, this shows strength in Bitcoin, money coming out of alts. So one thing that you watch here is how is Bitcoin dominance, relative to Bitcoin price. Obviously, you can see when dominance is higher, price goes higher. When dominance starts to drop, we see price start to drop. And relative to that, what is USDT dominance doing? Well, USDT dominance has had this, kind of a triple top threshold here. And during the big wick down on on Sunday, Monday, on Sunday, I guess, we saw this USDT dominance spike way up to probably, I guess we're at 4.4 is where this line is right now, 4.38%. It was up above, I want to say 4.6%. It was way up here. So that showed us that money was flowing back into USDT because people were scared. Now, then I added in total 3. Total 3 is total market cap of everything excluding Bitcoin and ETH. So this is basically all alts except ETH, right? And so this was another one. Total 3 was dumping, and while USDT was spiking, USDT dominance was spiking, Total 3 was down here in the high 50s. So this is something that you can watch if you're looking for that alt season. This is something that you can watch and keep an eye on as to when, if and when that Total 3 starts to spike. We see kind of an inversion of the relationship between Bitcoin dominance and Total 3, and that would be an indicator that alts are going to fly.
I've got a question for you guys about the alt season. I've been seeing more and more talk of there isn't going to be an alt season.
There might not.
There are just too many right now. It's flooded, all of the new tokens that are out there. It's not going to be an alt season. It's going to be a select few that are based on fundamentals. Who are the founders? What is the project doing?
This is my hope and dream.
Criteria is what they're looking for, right? And these are going to be the alts that we're going to see performing, not an actual alt season. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts on that are, especially because, we're talking about ETH earlier, Mark, and, seeing the confidence level in ETH at the moment. I'm not seeing a lot of confidence in the alts either. I'm seeing a lot of hopium, right? But not a lot of confidence. And then take it one step farther, like confident enough to even think that there is still going to be an alt season. A lot of people are saying that this is just going to be different. This isn't going to be like the previous bull runs. And again, take what you see and what you hear and what others, are saying and putting out there with a grain of salt, right? We don't know, which is why when I find something interesting, I always like to get your opinions. What do you guys think of that?
Well, I think, remember within the Bitcoin maxi circles, a lot of them to this day still have like a real chip on their shoulder, because they see Ethereum or the emergence of Ethereum and all of the money that went into buying the ETH token as being money that would have otherwise gone into buying Bitcoins. And whether or not that's true, like if it's a one-to-one thing or if there was just some component of that, speculation that was kind of robbed from Bitcoin and went into Ethereum, I think remains to be demonstrated. But I understand the assertion. I think that it is reasonable. And so now, that we're sort of 2 cycles in, the same thing can now be said for, the things that are now going to be robbing the layer 1 tokens of, capital that would be injected into their token that's now being taken by, let's say, meme coins, Trump coin included. It is true. There is a finite amount of capital. And so the more choice there is, the less concentrated that capital injection is going to be on any specific token, right? That's the claim. Is it true? I'm not sure. Remember, I've often espoused that there have been some tweets over the last couple of days to this effect that actual buying and selling pressure has very little to do with the macro price change of things. I haven't seen a whole lot to change my opinion on that. I think in terms of like day-to-day fluctuations and that sort of thing, especially if you're trading on like a weekly or even a monthly time frame, Certainly, retail and institutional trading of certain things does change their price a little bit. But I do think that the people who are quoting prices do have effective control over how these things evolve over very long periods of time. So it could be that actually there is an unlimited number of tokens that can be supported, and that they will all have their own respective bull market phases and that kind of thing, because you don't actually need anyone to buy any of them for their prices to go up. Whereas, if you are of the mind that no, it's necessary, right? You actually need someone to buy a token for it to appreciate in value, then yes, the claim that, we're too dilute, there's too many choices, holds a lot more water. But yeah, no one has yet demonstrated that there is a cause-effect relationship between those two things. I suspect that, especially after the last cycle, that there was a similar proliferation of tokens. This isn't the first time I've heard this criticism. When Ethereum exploded with all of these different tokens and projects and so on, it didn't seem to slow it down at all, and I don't think it really saw any increased retail attention compared to previous cycles. And some people will disagree with me on that, but I don't think that even if it did tick up slightly, it didn't tick up commensurate with the amount of market capitalization that we saw enter the space. So I don't think there's a one-to-one relationship. And so it could be that there is going to be an alt season as usual, but just because we've had them before doesn't mean that they have to happen again. Just like the 4-year Bitcoin cycle also doesn't have to occur. These aren't laws of the universe, as I've said before. These are things that emerge from people's speculation on them. So we'll see. I have no strong opinions one way or the other as to whether or not altcoin season even is a thing. I think that it's a phenomena that we kind of observe in retrospect, but I don't think we have any ability to predict its occurrence.
Hey, Mark, a question, because I apologize. I missed one thing that you were expanding on because I was distracted by the headline of Trump's sovereign wealth fund coming across my newsfeed.
Yeah. Isn't that what the Saudi Arabian prince's bank account is called?
Might be, but you said something that I thought you said something about like a coin not needing an asset, not needing people to buy it to appreciate in value.
Yeah, correct.
Could you just refresh me on what you meant by that and how that works?
Yeah, sure. So there's there is no okay, in the common understanding of market mechanics, people assume that that it's necessary and sufficient for something to be bought, that then its value appreciates. And this comes from the basic understanding of like an order book, for example. If people are racing to sell their things via orders, and people are spot trading on those orders, then in a rational market, people will take the lowest orders first, and that causes the price to appreciate. But we don't really live in that world when it comes to cryptocurrency. Certainly for things like the NASDAQ and the way that the CME works and things like that, that understanding is almost perfect. But when it comes to Coinbase and Binance, that's not true in most cases. In a lot of cases, makers will just move their quote prices, even though no one has traded a single thing. There are, in the wake of the FTX collapse, you could actually see a lot of the tokens that were traded exclusively on FTX continue to move their price, even though the exchange was destroyed, meaning that there was no one trading anything on it. But the candlestick charts continued to be printed. And it was just the algorithm, implemented by these specific market makers that was just causing the bid and asks to keep moving around, even though there was no trading volume associated with those price changes. And there is no regulation that says that in these exchanges that the prices do need to reflect market demand. So more often than not, there are a lot of a lot of things happening behind the scenes where people are negotiating to get their tokens accepted as collateral for loans and so on and so forth. And so getting people to buy that token is not necessarily as important as making the token's price move up. And if the people that are evaluating your collateral to negotiate the loan with you, if all they're paying attention to is the mid-market price, then it actually isn't necessary for anyone to be trading it. And so the market maker can just continuously move their bids and asks up, causing the token to appreciate in value and its market cap to continue to grow, even if that token hasn't been traded at all.
You're basically speaking to, market makers manipulating the price however they want, regardless of what the market is doing. But there's going to have to be a market at that price to play the game, right? So if the market maker pushes the levels in one direction or the other, if there's no buy-in from the market, then it doesn't work, and that's why they lower them and raise them.
Yeah, but it's not supposed to work, because in a lot of these cases, especially in the altcoin economy, the price itself is the product. There is actually no requirement or assumption that people will be trading it.
Well, and I mean, one of the biggest differences, or the biggest difference between crypto and traditional, equities, where the value of those assets in the stock market are at least based on some multiple of earnings.
Well, I mean, did you see the analysis of the Tesla stock that was leaked from? I think it was one of the big banks. One of their analysts wrote an internal email saying that they no longer understand how Tesla stock is valued. So it's not necessarily this new this new paradigm in finance. It's certainly much more cavalier in cryptocurrency, but I don't think it's exclusive to cryptocurrency.
Well, I think
I'm beginning to feel these kinds of 2008 vibes in the traditional stock markets as well.
Well, I think Tesla has they've got a kingmaker at the helm,
Right.
and that kingmaker is reaping the benefits of being the kingmaker, and so maybe that, dare I, pardon the pun, maybe that trumps all valuations, and he's just getting he's got the golden ticket right now. But back to the original question or conversation about fundamentals. This is something that I have been anticipating, waiting anxiously for since I first got in crypto. And, the fact that memes are the hottest, most profitable coins is evidence of how young this market is and immature this market is. And so maybe I do think that fundamentals are important. And I've longed for the day that thousands of shit coins evaporate from at least from the centralized exchanges, and we're left with Bitcoin and alts with actual fundamental use cases. And it's a long time coming, and you can't help but wonder if the introduction of more institutional money into this market is really demanding that, right? They want to see some function, some utility, and so that could be part of it, and that could mean, like you said, maybe we don't get the alt season. It could also mean maybe we don't get the deep 40-50% corrections like we're used to seeing historically in Bitcoin. I'm still prepared for one, but we may not get it, right? So, and I'm okay if we don't get it, but I'm not moving my bids off that line anytime soon. Just in case.
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you. By the way, when Like I do think that there is a lot of like fat that can be trimmed off of the cryptocurrency markets. But at the same time, I'm not necessarily convinced that the meme tokens are without fundamental value. Certainly, a lot of them are, but they, in a way, they kind of emulate Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin is, I've had arguments about the fundamental value of Bitcoin previously, but it's still like it stands on its brand and recognition and Lindy effect to some
It
extent.
stands on its brand and recognition, and it's true decentralization.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's huge.
And these are I agree with you.
And so when some of these when any of these other alts start to, if they don't have, if there's not a use case, there's not a utility, and it's just a meme, show me some true decentralization, and then maybe there's some merit there.
Do you think that everybody cares about true decentralization anymore, though? I mean, the argument for a lot of the meme tokens, and I say this, and we have a debate tomorrow or another blockchain banter, and we could talk about this some more, But since we're talking about alt, I was having this discussion with someone recently when the Trump token, first came about.
Right.
And the argument with memes was, I think it was, for as long as we can remember, Mark, you and I always talk about it every conference. It's, onboarding the next million billion users and mass adoption and, things of this sort, right? I think it was like 400,000 people in a matter of a day or two wound up, getting into crypto and wanting to, if this is the means to get them to understand, well, even then, do they understand? But if this is the introduction to crypto for them, it's still serving a purpose, right? Like, I think there are arguments on both sides, and I'm impartial. I think memes are fun. I don't play with memes very often because I'm not sitting there, watching the charts and things of that sort. I think during COVID, when I didn't have to really work, I could do that. But
listen, memes can create fantastic opportunities to build wealth, right? There's no denying that whatsoever. And in terms of they attract people into the market, I could buy into that, right? But a lot of times they attract people into the market under false false pretenses,
100%.
and they put their money in, they make some money, and then they get wrecked. So yes, there's something to that as a mechanism for attracting more traders into the market. I can see that, but at the end of the day, I would still rather see us dealing with a basket of or a trading a market full of coins that are associated with real use cases, with real utility that actually serve a purpose, than the next dog token.
Yeah,
I think for a lot of those who are,
the Trump memes, it's disgusting. It infuriates me. I think there's a lot of Ponzi. It smells, if it looks like it's a Ponzi and it smells like a Ponzi. But how can you bet against this guy right now? How can you bet against anything he is doing in the financial markets? Because he's not setting himself up for failure.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. I just fundamentally can't.
There's a big difference too, and we talk about this, the investing versus the trading, right? You have that sort of investor mindset, and that, you're thinking more like an investor as in terms of the fundamentals and things,
Well,
right?
and I
Traders,
also,
half
I
the time
also,
they don't know what they're trading, and that's okay. They're looking at the chart and they see something that they like, and so they have their position all set up, and they know what they're waiting for, and they move to the next one. It doesn't matter if it's a meme, if it's a whatever else, right? It's more
right.
opportunity,
I'll
I
trade them
would say.
all. I'll trade them all, but I'm not holding.
Yeah. Mark, what were you going to say?
I was gonna say that, like, I agree with Keith in terms of like what I want. Like, I often miss the like 2019, 2020, 21, days of cryptocurrency where people were really like digging into projects and trying to understand
Same.
them, and now it's just I even saw something to this effect on Twitter recently where it's like, in those days we talked about solving the Byzantine, a Byzantine problem in cryptography, and now it's just like, what's the ticker? And no one really knows or understands anything about the cryptographic principles on which any of this technology is built anymore, and it's kind of sad.
As we
But
continue to progress in those areas too, it's more and more difficult to, you know, to inform new users or for them to even catch up on this, right? 2020, I think, was when I first got into the space. And even then, learning everything, it was difficult. You had resources and things, but 5 years later, if it's what's the ticker, and then you really get into this industry and realize that there is all of this actual technology underlying it, and you want to understand that, I think it's even more difficult because there's less discussion on that, like you said,
yeah,
or whoever it was that had posted this said.
and I think it was a niche community back then, and I don't think people are really understanding what mass adoption means. The think about the way that things are changing, whether we want them to or not, or agree with them. For example, I would say that on average, the quality of like content production when it comes to cinematic releases has been going down quite steeply. And we're moving much more towards this kind of quantity over quality and direct to streaming service kind of economy that definitely services the the ADHD mentality leaning of the Gen Zers who are now of significant earning ages. I think that and this has been going for a long time. I refer to Bancor's own founder when he's who also founded a company called Meta Cafe, which is one of the early competitors to YouTube, where Meta Cafe's philosophy was to focus on like very high quality content, like very popular video content with very good, very good production and that sort of thing. Only to find out that 99% of YouTube's retention is by these like weird niche, like homebrew sort of content that only gets a handful of views. And YouTube won that race. And I think we're seeing that more and more, like even within YouTube itself now. There was a time where like the really big YouTube channels like, SciShow and Vsauce and, people that were creating very, very, who would think a lot about what they wanted to create and would make a really fantastic, contribution to YouTube, is now being flooded out by AI generated 6-second videos.
Right.
Like that is what is winning. Right? If you're betting on quality and fundamentals, you would have lost the last 20 years.
Wait till we hear, because this is probably even easier to do than a film. Wait till we hear of an AI generated song or album winning a Grammy.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Well, the Beatles actually just did. Right. The Beatles did. They did an AI generated album and won a Grammy for it.
Won a Grammy. But it's interesting. Like it's interesting to apply that thinking.
Imagine an unknown, an artist that the world doesn't know yet, that somebody creates, via AI, and all you got to do is write the lyrics and prompt the AI for the music that you want and the tone that you want and the sound that you want.
But
And
there'll be an AI to do that as well, giving the AI that actually does the production,
it's already happening.
the inputs.
So
But
let's
it's
talk about
interesting.
AI really fast.
Well,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
let me finish that thought, because it's interesting to really put yourself in that mindset and then apply it to literally everything, including financial markets.
Right.
Right. It could be that the age of fundamental value has already left, right, and we're in the death throes of it now, and it's a brand new a brand new worldview of the younger generations that we're kind of being drawn sort of into that vortex,
And
but they are kind of in control.
it's certainly already starting with trading,
Absolutely.
So going to be interesting to see if and when all trading is AI controlled and dominated, and human
And
decision
meaningless.
making is out of the market, right? Does that dampen volatility or create volatility?
Yeah. But yeah, I think that it might be a waste of time to look for meaning in it. And I think that that's when the fundamentals analysis becomes increasingly flawed with time. I think that traditional fundamentals analysis did, it did work once. It could be that civilization now no longer abides by the common sense principles that make fundamentals analysis successful.
Yeah, but
And
I just have a hard time thinking that the world is going to continue to speculate on 20,000 shit coins, and whichever one has a group behind it with the least amount of liquidity that can pump and dump the fastest is going to survive over the ones that are actually doing something to improve any function in the world.
Well, like the 6-second videos, it could be that these shitcoins aren't expected to live longer than a few days. And it will be the people that are constantly rotating to the next thing. And that was what's required to maintain your wealth. And that holding anything for any amount of time on the long term is a bad idea. Like, we just don't know how things are going
Charlie
to
Munger
pan out.
is rolling over in his grave. I hope that that Warren Buffett doesn't hear this and have a heart attack and die.
Yeah, and I'm not advocating for this, by the way. Like, I'm not saying isn't this such a great thing. I'm just observing that it could be that the paradigm that we're living in looks very unfamiliar compared to what we've lived in before.
Scientist.
He researched that. He's writing a paper on it soon. So everybody look for that publication.
Somewhere there's a dry erase board with crazy equations on it behind Mark. Or maybe he's in a hotel, so maybe he'll be like my partner Fred, who just does it on the windows.
Fun.
So
whatever it happens to be, I didn't mean to take us down this path here, but
you never know what rabbit hole we're climbing down.
No, you don't.
In this
You
show,
don't. Right? I saw that the money from Bitcoin wasn't going into the alts, and so it just made me think of like this recent, or I should say these recent thoughts that some were sharing. Good. We have time still. Let's look at it.
Yeah, let's take a peek. I had posted something earlier today that just said, like the weekend was a little crazy, and there were lots of opportunities there for some people, and some people were really stressed out about it. And if you are stressed out about it, the best thing I can tell you to do is zoom out and get a sense of what's there, and know that the trend is still intact. The bull run is still intact. Yes, we could have some more dips, and a lot of people view those dips as opportunities, but we've got looks like decent bid support, a nice ladder of support up to 93K. I would be looking for higher lows, right? So we know we just dipped back down to 91.5. So we're looking for higher lows at this point. And in terms of what's happening with the order flow here, you'll notice that yellow, which is the smallest order class, is making some profound movements here. And you see this smooth vertical line right here.
Yeah,
that's not retail. That's a well-controlled VWAP bot, just pouring money in small orders, a lot of them in a very short amount of time, to just kind of buy the range. And so We do still have some liquidity kind of suppressing us here into this 100K range. Maybe they're trying to push it down and get those opportunities. You know, I actually didn't look to see what the ETFs did yesterday, whether they bought or whether they sold. And let's see, it looks like it was net selling, but BlackRock held steady. They wrote it out. They made the right decision. Fidelity dumped.
Are you able to zoom in on that a little bit for us or no?
Yeah, let's see.
There it is.
So
now it's in your face.
Yeah, right there. Right there. BlackRock, zero. Fidelity was here at sold 177 million. And on the ETH side,
how does that 177 million compare to previous sells? It looked
ETH actually had a day of buying, right? That huge dip, they bought it, which is interesting. How does 176 million stack up in terms of or 234 was the total volume day? That's not a huge day. I mean, we've had plenty of days with that kind of volume here historically. Let's see, we can see the whole chart here. Yeah, not especially noteworthy on the volume. Just to me, what's noteworthy is they didn't all dump, but there wasn't any. There was very little buying. So what was the buying on the? Now that I've expanded the chart, I got to scroll all the way up. Probably on the grayscale. Yeah. So was it the grace? Was it the regular one or was it the mini? Let's see. Yeah, it was actually the most expensive product in the game. Interestingly, and not very much, right? 8 million was the only buyer yesterday on Bitcoin ETFs. I'll bet today they're buying again robustly, and I would also imagine that, you know, just maybe, since we led this call off talking about some inorganic behavior, just maybe what we're seeing up here, which incidentally is a little bit of erosion from from this 110 million, 110K level. Some of this liquidity has trickled down into the into the active trading range, and so this is getting a little bit thinner up here. Still a nice ladder here of resistance, but as this erodes, it's going to get easier to ultimately penetrate. I just would like to see an extended period of consolidation above 100. In this range, I think that's healthy. You have to remember at some point in time there are pullbacks, right? Even in a bull market, there's pullbacks, and in a bear market, there's a pullback, right? Obviously. And so where is price going to land? Price is going to land where there is some structural support. And as you can see, this is our strongest structural support. We've touched it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 times. And so you want to see that built. You want to see, that kind of foundation built at every level. And we've not had anything really hold here above 100K for very long. Looked like we were getting it a little bit. But we've got to, we have to kind of replicate this. I'm not saying it needs to take 6 months. But
that was my next question. Is it the time frame that you're looking at, or is it more the number of times that it is touching that level? Like we're looking at 91, we said 11 times. Are you looking at that number? Or are you looking at like what is it that would make you feel comfortable?
Well, there's a combination.
That consolidation.
There's a combination of forces at work here, right? One is we've had an extended period of time above this level. Two is, yes, the number of touches. And three is going to be where the technicals line up on this. As you can see, we have the 21-week moving average sliding right into place here at the bottom of this range. And over the next, few weeks, if price continues to appreciate, we'll see it hopefully come up and let that be the new near range support. And you'll also notice that the 50-week moving average is really perfectly aligned with the trend line. And so I want to see this, right? It's starting to fall below it a little bit. I want to see it drag up as well. So it's kind of all of these elements working together that I'm looking at. It's not any one thing. It's the
Right.
sum of all parts.
Yeah. I know we're at the top of the hour, Mark. I want to invite you to add any of your thoughts as well. And I also want to, Keith, you brought it back to the beginning of the call when we were talking about, what is your PC way of saying it? I forget this. You have a very wonderful way of putting this.
You mean
it's not like
the inorganic moves, the choreographed moves?
There's another one too that you say, and it's going to come to me later. And I'm going to have a new sticky note here in the background for
Liquidity
next week.
hurting.
We said it's something, but we also brought up the volatility. Mark, I know that our Fastlane, your trading bot has been thriving on this volatility. So I just wanted to quick congratulate you on that, because it has been busy over the last couple of days, through the weekend. And I took notice of that. So, kudos to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Are there any
That's
final
how he can
thoughts?
that's how he can afford to get haircuts all over the world.
Well, I don't think that's going to, Mark. But maybe that's the exact reason we see them, don't see him so often with this fresh haircut. It's because it's not his.
Right.
Final thoughts? We're good. I don't want to cut us
I
all
just want to
off.
say, all things said and done, if you have a look at the Bitcoin weekly chart, really, it doesn't look like much has happened at all.
Right.
People's reaction to it was pretty spectacular, but really, it just looks like relatively speaking, an extremely normal week, like the normalest of weeks for Bitcoin. So the fact that people took such a strong reaction to it, I think is interesting. Maybe it's a reflection that they are feeling much more optimistic, and so a little pullback has surprised them more than it would usually. But I remember we've seen pullbacks much worse than this one that people didn't even notice. And I think that's an interesting observation. I'm not sure what
I think it might just sound more extreme too. We went from this and now we're all the way back down to 91.
Yeah,
And, it seems so much more extreme. It's like a 10% from 44 to 40, like nobody's really noticing,
Especially that it happened over the weekend, right? Like I should have known, right? Like, why did I even bother? Well, I explained why I bothered, because I was in a situation where I needed that, but I needed to get to that capital. But in hindsight, like Mark said, look, and that's when my aha moment came, when I looked at the chart before I went to bed and saw that wick go straight to that support line. I was like, motherfucker, he got me. I should have known. I have the line. It's been there for months. What the hell? And so, I was a little frustrated with myself over that, but nonetheless, that's the game we play. Can't win them all.
Right. Mark, it might also be, the number of, you can always tell, like this, 2020 is when I was here. This is my second bull run, right? So I think we've all lived through these 30, 40, 50% drawbacks. And for a lot of those, they may not have, this might seem scary and extreme to them also. Right. So maybe it might show the number of, new crypto DeFi participants. We're seeing the amount of new, people that we're getting in the industry. Possibly it could be that 200, 400,000 people we saw that we talked about earlier.
Listen, it was a 16%. It was a 16% correction from the all-time high. If you can't stomach that, then crypto is not the place for you.
They're learning. They're learning too. They're learning their lessons too this weekend, Keith. So you weren't alone. Mark, what were you going to say? You had another.
I think it could also be that because it was coincident with a drawback in like many of the U.S. tech stocks, may have just primed people a little bit, or at least the overall sentiment was a little bit
Everybody's been
more
waiting for the
far-reaching than
correction, right? I
everyone.
mean,
Yeah.
us included, right? We've been champion of that
Everybody's waiting for that
for the
single God
for the entire
candle
year.
straight up to the heavens, Keith. Nobody's waiting for the correction. There are some that know that maybe there's this correction coming, right? But I think everybody's waiting for that God candle straight up.
Right. I'm a
Anyway,
contrarian.
thank you.
What can I say?
Thank you guys
All right.
so much. Again, it's only Tuesday. Enjoy the rest of your week. And everybody, thank you to all of our viewers as well. Always wonderful to hear from you guys. So anything, you want to give us feedback on, I know Keith was asking for feedback. He wants to hear your thoughts on his new chart that he put together, any of the discussion we had. So
I forgot about
you.
that. I got no love on the
Three
chart.
Corners
That's okay.
You are welcome. Thank you for joining us. What's that?
I said I forgot about that. I got no love on the chart, but that's okay. Maybe it's not for everyone, but I like it.
No, I think you're going to get some love on this. I think it's stage fright. Nice chart. Look at this. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Somebody wanted to show you love, Keith.
Thank you, Three Corners. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you guys again. Enjoy your week. We'll see you all next Tuesday. Thank you, everyone.
Have a great week, everybody. Trade smart.
See ya.